Good morning, everybody. We are just going to give it 30 seconds to a minute just to allow everyone to get online if they've got any problems, which we did this morning. So we'll just give a nice sort of 30 seconds to 60 seconds, if that's okay. Okay, I think we'll start the session. Good morning, everybody. I'm Simon Millward, Health and Safety Director for Bouygues UK. Thank you all for joining us today for the Respiratory Risks Protecting Our Workforce webinar. Before we begin, I just need to run through some housekeeping with you. You can see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. Please send your questions to us via the Q&A box, which you should find at the bottom of your screen. These questions are being moderated and there will be an opportunity for us to answer them at the end of the session. The event is also being recorded. The agenda for today's session is that we will shortly hear from Fabienne Viala, the UK Country Manager for Bouygues Construction and the Chair of Bouygues UK. She will be followed by an introduction as to the importance of today's session. We will hear from Doug, who was diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, a severe and irreversible lung condition. Andy Robbins at RVT Group will provide an overview of the types of equipment that could be used on sites to help control dust and noise. David Nage from OnSite Support will then be providing us about the last line of defence, which is PPE. We will then finish with a Q&A session. So again, please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A chat throughout the webinar. We will try to get through as many of these as we can at the end. I will now hand over to Fabienne Viala. Fabienne?
Hi, Simon, and thank you very much. And thank you very much for introducing this very sort of important webinar. So good morning to everyone, and it's great to see so many people on the call. This week is British Lung Foundation's Love Your Lungs Week, and it's really important this year because in 2022 we continue to live with the coronavirus, the Corona-19 virus, which is attacking our respiratory systems, and so protecting our lungs is even more important than it was before the pandemic. In December 2021, the HAC reported that every year 12,000 lung disease deaths are estimated to be linked to past exposures at work. And the labour force survey also indicated that there is 17,000 new cases of work-induced breathing and lung-related illnesses that are reported every year. So the health of our workforce is absolutely key, and to provide safe, healthy working environments at Bouygues, we are working with our supply chain of suppliers to set an ecosystem of health and safety standards that help us safeguard everybody who's working on our building sites. So as an industry, we need to ensure that we are fully protecting our workforce against these respiratory risks, and that we are, and this is why today we're with our partners, RTV and OnSite, to raise awareness on this critical issue. Today, you're going to hear from Simon and Andy and David about information on the hierarchy of control and best practice for dust control guidances and examples of effective engineering controls and PPP, as you pointed out, Simon. So I'm really looking forward to hearing you and the three of you to hear about, all the things we can do to protect our teams. And I want to thank everybody on the call for joining us today, because it's really important, and I hope you'll find this webinar very useful. So thank you, and over to you guys.
Thank you, Fabienne. Like I said, I am Simon Millward, Health and Safety Director at Bouygues UK. We now have a short film which explains the importance of this topic.
I'm Simon Millward from Bouygues UK, Health and Safety Director. We're here today at Horsville Quarter to look at operational risks in relation to respiratory risk in the workplace. A very relevant topic for all companies, with good health and safety being good business. Good health and safety is essential for all businesses, with respiratory risks representing 12,000 deaths estimated each year in relation to occupational respiratory risk. We are going to be looking at some of the risks associated with some of the tasks and activities that are generalised on most construction projects across the UK. With silica in particular being a dust generated by many activities and represented in a lot of materials that are used within construction, bricks, tiles and mortar, it's ever so relevant now to start looking at our actions today to prevent future issues in relation to people's occupational health later on in their life. The whole spirit of today is to raise awareness and hopefully some education in relation to operatives' health, safety, in particular the occupational health side of their work activities. Ideally, in the world of construction and CDM, we look at the hierarchy of controls. In a real world, an ideal world would be looking at eliminating the risks in the workplace. But typically, due to the nature of our work and the activities we do and the materials that are used within construction, we often find ourselves looking at engineering controls, administrative controls, and often PPE as the last resort. We have been working hard with some of the industry suppliers and our preferred supply chain partners, including RVT, in providing some engineered solutions to ensure that we protect our workers and the working environment in relation to reducing and managing the risk of respiratory diseases. Within Bouygues UK, we have developed a whole suite of health and safety standards, which are there to help our workforce and our site teams plan, manage and control risks within the workplace. Even with all these, it's still imperative we use opportunities like this to raise awareness, educate the workforce and drive standards in relation to improving workers' occupational health whilst working on a Bouygues UK site.
So now that we know why we are here today and the importance of having these discussions, we will now play a short video of Doug's story. He was interviewed by his granddaughter, Alicia, who is employed by RVT Group.
Hi, Grandad.
All right,
How are you feeling?
knackered. I'm Douglas Hall, retired construction site manager.
Would you be able to give us an idea of some of the big construction projects that you've worked on over the years?
I built houses, offices, shop fronts. I worked in Oxford Street on some of the shop fronts in Oxford Street. I worked on schools, hospitals, where I ended up in anyway, with the hospital I was working in. I ended up in there. COPD, you can't cure. It's going to get worse. From apprentice, I started at 15. As an apprentice, you had to get down the saw pits and shovel the sawdust out and do the donkey work, cleaning up, sweeping up. And the dust from that was quite extensive. We didn't use PP, we didn't use anything now in them days. And you didn't have safety officers wandering around them days like you do now. And we was cutting asbestos with skill saws in the garage itself we was working in, with no extraction at all. But, you know, You worked, you done it.
Were you aware while you were working on sites of silicosis and aspergillus and all of these different potential lung
Not at
diseases?
the beginning, not at the beginning. At the, when I got near the end of my lifespan in the industry, I was aware of most things then. Well, it's gradually got worse, and I'm having more help, treatment.
How is that affecting you every day?
It does affect you.
It's okay, take your time, Grandad. It's okay, take your time. This just makes it so real, doesn't it? And people don't realise that, you know, it does affect people in the way it has you. Like, you're my granddad, and this is how it's affecting you, and this is how it can affect people's dads, their brothers, anyone working in the construction industry, and people just don't understand it until it's too late.
I can't breathe at all. You know, I can't do any physical exercise, and you lose confidence in yourself, in your abilities. It don't get better.
If you could tell the guys on site today, you know, one thing, or you know, give them a message on this video call, what would you say to them?
If you see anything on site concerning your health, shout. Shout. Shout.
Hopefully, Grandad, this video is going to be shown to 500 construction workers, and if just a handful of them take away the message that they need to shout on site if they see something that's going to affect their health, then you've made a difference.
Yeah.
And you know, you're saving lives.
Yeah. You're not invincible. It hits us all. Any dust going into your lungs will damage them. It's a killer disease, which you can't get rid of.
Every day is a struggle, and he gets so frustrated because Grandad, like your dad, did everything. He's progressed to emphysema now, so he's at the worst end of it now. This has been so difficult for him, well, as you can see. Yeah, but good on him, he did it.
As youngsters in any industry, you're invincible. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Wow. I think you will all agree that the health and safety standards have come a long, long way since Doug started out in the construction industry. However, the key message for me from watching that is that we all have a duty to protect our health and safety and that of others. Bouygues UK have been working with RVT Group to look at the different types of equipment that we can use on our sites to help protect our workers. Andy Robbins, Key Account Manager at RVT, is here to tell you more. Andy?
Thank you, Simon, and good morning to everybody. My name is Andy, and I'm a Key Account Manager here at RVT Group, and I'd like to thank Bouygues for including us in this webinar. I'd like to highlight also the relationship with ourselves and Bouygues. We've been working with them over the years, and in a greater way and looking to help them protect the long-term health of their workers on site and to put in place control measures to do that. Now, I'd like to note that that health really is the poor relation to safety and has been really for too long. We would like to see the same attention given to health as it is given to safety. The consequences of an unprotected respiratory health can be devastating, as we saw in Doug's emotional video, and it's the duty of employers to protect the people and their environment. Now, we've got a short video now to looking at some of RVT's equipment in action on site, which are protecting the respiratory health of the workers.
Hello, I'm Ted Taylor. I'm Senior Technical Consultant with RVT Group, on site with Bouygues today to demonstrate some best practice dust control techniques. So even before we get to site, we need to have carried out a suitable risk assessment of covering the work activities which we're planning. We need to consider construction industry guidance. We need to look at HSG 258. We need to look at the cost regulations and the Health and Safety at Work Act to ensure that we're fully protecting our people. So we'll be looking at using the hierarchy of control. Eliminate the hazard by changing the process. Substitute the material or the work activity for something that's got less risk. Use an engineering control, which is equipment to take the hazard away. Administrative controls, where we're keeping the people away from the hazards. And then finally, as a last resort, using personal protective equipment. We need to understand the hazards that we're working with. We've got inhalable dust, which is something that our bodies can generally handle. That's the visible dust that we see in the air. And that will be filtered out by our nose and throat. Our bodies can handle that. It's the respirable dust that is responsible for the long-term illnesses, things like lung cancer, COPD, and silicosis. We need to consider workplace exposure limits as set out in EH40, HSE's guidance document on exposure limits. You've got things like respirable crystalline silica with 0.1 milligrams per cubic metre and hardwood dust at 3 milligrams per cubic metre. As these are carcinogens, we should be reducing exposure as low as reasonably practicable. So we've brought three types of machine with us today: the Raptor, the Dustmaster Pro and the Wander Filter Pro. Now the Raptor is the smallest of our dust filtration machines and has an airflow of about 1,000 cubic metres an hour. This is used for smaller activities, local works, drilling, grinding, things like that. The Dustmaster is a larger machine. It's used for more intensive activities with an airflow of around 2,500 metre cubed an hour. And then the biggest of the machines we bought, which is the Wander Filter. That's designed around creating negative pressures in quite large work areas and handling much larger volumes of dust, and that will run up to about 6,000 metre cubed an hour. Each of these machines will filter to HEPA grade and can be set up to handle hazardous materials like respirable crystalline silica. Each of the three systems that we brought to site today have three-stage filtration. So you have a pre-filter, which is user serviceable. Site guys can remove that on a regular basis and clean it out either with a hose or using a suitable vacuum cleaner. This will get the bulk of the dust out and protect the finer filters. The second stage of filtration is a fine filter. This is often adequate if we're using low toxicity dusts. This is a disposable filter and can be simply replaced if needed. The third filter is a HEPA filter. These are individually tested and certified, and we record the test certificate number against the machine it's been fitted into as part of the thorough examination and test process that each of our machines goes through before being delivered to site. Remember, we need to capture, contain and control.
My name is Andy Robbins, Key Account Manager at the RVT Group. We've been working with Bouygues for many years, helping to improve respiratory health on site. The significant projects that we've helped them on such as the UCLH project, where they were installing the proton beam equipment and the area had to be completely pristine. So we're not only protecting the actual equipment being installed, but the workers' health on site. Then across to the Cardiff University, there's various challenges they faced there with dust, which we provided bespoke solutions for. Then there's the Cambridge project, the Cavendish 3 project, which we've been doing a lot of work with them on managing their dust, managing their noise, and general site health. Hazards on site aren't mutually exclusive. Often you'll find a dusty activity is a noisy activity. Therefore, we combine solutions that manage the dust and the noise together. The Soundex acoustic cutting enclosure protects site workers from noisy activities, while the extraction protects them from the dust. The HSE recommends using dust vacuums to remove dust from the floor rather than using a broom. A broom creates an abundance of airborne dust, while a correctly spec'd M or H class dust vac will maintain safe dust levels.
Thank you for watching the video. You saw in the video the various equipment demonstrated, Dustex Raptor, the Dustmaster Pro, and the Wonder Filter Pro that RVT offer to control hazardous dusts. However, we also offer a wide range of other dust control equipment. Here we see the Hydromist examples. These are dust suppression units designed to provide targeted controlled water suppression to manage airborne dust. With different water tank sizes, throw capabilities ranging from 10 to 60 meters, you're able to protect those on site from airborne dust generated from a wide range of construction and demolition site applications. Now we'll look onto the dust vac range. Here are a couple of examples. We supply a large range of certified industrial vacs, dust vacs. As mentioned in the video, we advocate ban the broom. A sweeping on-site can cause large amounts of dust to become airborne. Our durable M and H class dust vacs safely manage settled dust and debris in line with HSE guidelines. Then moving on to fume. Dust isn't the only respiratory hazard, and we need to bear that in mind. Fume is also particulate and poses a significant threat. As such, we offer static and mobile welding fume filter kits, as well as kits suitable for controlling volatile fumes. We then look at exhaust. Exhaust fumes generated from diesel plant on site can be extremely dangerous and should be controlled at every opportunity. RVT offer hire of heavy duty particulate diesel filters that reduce diesel emissions by 95%. Then we look at enclosures. As I mentioned in the video, hazards on site aren't mutually exclusive. With dust, you get the noise and sometimes fume and so on. Our enclosures don't only block and control the sound waves of noise, but some models can also be used in conjunction with dust or fume extraction and filtration solutions, creating a multi-hazard control solution. Part of RVT's support to construction sites and construction companies is the educational resources. We are driven by providing effective respiratory hazard solutions, but we are also passionate about educating managers and their site teams about the dangers of hazards and the ways they can be controlled. We offer free toolbox talks covering everything from general construction dust to the management of radon and benzene gases. We also offer in-depth white papers and best practice guides. All these resources are available from our website. We also offer free CPD UK approved presentations, which can be presented in person or online to your team. These are 1-hour sessions to provide comprehensive introductions to different hazards and sectors. All attendees will receive a certificate of achievement, and when they have completed a session. To book a CPD presentation with your team, you can visit our website or give us a call. I'd like to thank you everyone for listening and say goodbye, and we look forward to hearing from you going forward.
Thanks, Andy. We will circulate links to the educational resources covering respiratory hazards after the event. We are now going to hear from David Naj, Strategic Relationship Manager at OnSite Support, who provides PPE, welfare and safety products to the industry. David?
Thank you very much for the introduction, Simon. Just really wanted to spend the next few minutes focusing on respiratory protection. So my thanks to Bouygues for the opportunity, fellow presenters, and for the contributions from people like the HSE, the British Lung Foundation, some of our manufacturing partners, and many others. So just wanted to, before we move on to a short video, just go through a few little highlights. Respiratory protective equipment is clearly an essential part of anything that you do as part of your PPE. The HSE define RPE, respiratory protective equipment, as a particular part of your personal protective equipment, your PPE, and it's designed to protect you, the wearer, from breathing any harmful substances or from oxygen deficient atmospheres when controls, as has been previously outlined, are either not possible or insufficient on their own. And that protection, as Andy mentioned, isn't just about particles, it's also about gases and vapors, and also about environments where there is a lack of sufficient oxygen. And the important thing to remember in all of this is that the smaller the particle, the easier it will be for you to inhale deep into your lungs, where it will remain and cause damage. And therefore exposure, even in the short term, can result in some long-term implications. And so when exposed to certain hazardous substances over time, it can cause life-changing and debilitating symptoms, as we've seen in Doug's case. And so, you can't intervene too early. And particularly in the construction industry, we're faced with the headline things like asbestos and silica, but we shouldn't forget about the other substances that we'll encounter, such as MDF and other particles and vapors. So I'd like to share with you a little short video, and just if we view this in the context of the Health and Safety at Work Act and the Management of Health and Safety and Work Regulations, because obviously these are considerations that need to be borne in mind in terms of our legal obligations. So let's just play the video.
The three most important things to remember are what job that you're actually undertaking, so whether that's cutting, grinding, drilling. The second thing is then to understand what the risks are and refer to the risk assessments for the particular job that you're doing. And the third thing is also to refer to Bouygues UK's health and safety standards to ensure that you're in compliance with those things as well. There are principally three types of respiratory protection. There are your disposable single-use, which come in a number of different types. The second thing are half masks, which are reusable. And the third thing would be a powered air, fed air, which gives positive air pressure behind a mask. And those things may or may not incorporate eyewear. The first thing is whether or not you've been face fit tested, and you should be face fit tested in order to select the right type of respiratory protection. And the second thing is to make sure that when you are selecting that type of respiratory protection, you're looking for the risk assessment and making sure that you're selecting the right type of mask that fits your face and the job that you'll be doing. The three things that you should look for are protection, fit and comfort. Whether it complies to the UK regulations, whether it is fit for purpose, and whether or not it actually fits you and is comfortable in use. Fit testing is an independent, qualified individual checking that the product that you're about to use is fit for purpose, and that individual should be competent, experienced, and also qualified in order to undertake that assessment for you. What a face fit test does for you is make sure that the mask actually fits your face correctly and provides a good, solid and adequate seal to your face, and also it makes sure that it's fit for purpose. You should do a fit test before you start and commence any job involving any respiratory challenges, and certainly before any equipment is issued to you. And that fit test should be repeated periodically according to Bouygues UK's guidelines and any risk assessments. And certainly if you're issued with a new type of equipment, a new type of respiratory protection, you should also undertake a face fit test before that. One of the other really important considerations is that we all want to make sure that we go home safely to our loved ones. And so we have a duty of care not only to ourselves, but also to the others around us. That shared commitment is to the health, safety and well-being of the people that we work with and of ourselves.
Just really wanted to cover off a couple of other things and highlight a couple of things that have been talked about in the video. Clearly, when we're talking about RPE, we're talking about respiratory air purifying devices, which are known as filtering devices, or breathing apparatus, which then is designed to provide an independent supply of air, particularly applicable where you have the risk of oxygen deprivation. So those type of tight-fitting face pieces, also known as face masks, are designed to provide that type of filtration, and they're also loose-fitting face pieces, which are designed to provide a powered air, so positive air pressure, and they could be hoods, helmets, visors, and other things of that nature. The other important element is to consider the type of filtration, whether it's a particulate filter or a gas or vapor filter, and those filters will be labelled in accordance with that EN standard 14387. And therefore you will encounter filters that will be either labelled P for particulates or ABEK, otherwise known as ABEK filters, to give you protection against things like gases, vapors, and bacteria and viruses and those type of things that you may also encounter on a construction site. So just in the video, we also talked about comfort. I just really wanted to focus on some of the excuses that are often used for not wearing the right type of respiratory equipment. People talk about it being awkward to work with, interfering with your other PPE, people you work with never wear it and never have any problems. And the other thing is that people often say you don't like to shave, and obviously that's a problem for me. But the point about wearing up PPE and RPE is that it's there to protect you, and therefore it is critically important that you don't ignore the fact that you need to protect your respiratory system, because excuses won't protect you at the end of the day. And particularly in the current climate, where you have hot weather, you know, there are lots of different types of PPE with exhaust valves on them or fed air solutions that will provide you with a greater degree of comfort when facing some of the challenges that you may face around the site. I also really wanted just to move on to just focus a little bit on the HSE guidance, because it is important to take the advice not only of the manufacturer's instructions that you're given with the PPE, but also to look in general terms at the HSE guidance. So it is important to be clean shaven at the start of your shift. It is always necessary to check the fit before every use, particularly around the nose, chin, and also to check the position of the straps, and also, as previously discussed, to carry out a face fit test. And that includes making sure that you can then get a snug fit around your face. And the other part of using RPE is to make sure you maintain it properly. If you look after it, it will look after you. So before use, always check you have a good seal. Make sure the straps have got good elasticity. Make sure that you routinely check for any distortion, any damage, any cracks, tears, wears, or defective parts in the product that you're about to use before you use it. And therefore, where it is a reusable product, to regularly clean and maintain it and put it away safely and correctly. The manufacturers will supply you with bags to store the equipment in, and that's designed to prevent dust getting inside the mask for the next time that you use it. And the last thing I want to just cover off is the business around just to remember a few simple things. When the first of which is to select the right solution, so that's the right type of mask, the right type of filtration for the hazards that you might encounter, and also the right size of mask so it fits your face. And that means getting fit tested. As daft as it sounds, don't ever be tempted to remove the mask in a hazard area. And if in doubt, follow the HSE guidance to stop, look, assess, and then manage the situation. And if in any doubt whatsoever, seek professional advice so that you can remain and stay healthy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. That brings us to the end of the presentations and onto the Q&A session. The first question that we have is an anonymous question. So please, again, if you do want to put a question through live, then obviously you have the facility at the bottom of your screen. So an anonymous question, I think this is more relevant for Andy. How do I know if I need dust extraction?
Thank you, Simon. That's a very, very good question. And I think we all need to understand that any grinding, cutting, sanding, breaking activity will create dust, and that some dust extraction filtration will be needed. Even the dust that you cannot see, you might think there's no dust in the air, there's no problem, but it's that dust that's the critical one. That's the invisible to the naked eye. You can't see it with the naked eye, and that's the dust that is hanging in the air. That's the dust that is getting into the deep lung. As David mentioned, the smaller the particulate, the easier it will be to get into the lung, and then that's where it does its damage. So essentially, anything that is grinding, cutting, sanding, breaking will need extraction, dust extraction and filtration.
Thank you, Andy. Hopefully that answers the question sufficiently for the person who put that one in, but good question. We have one from Lisa Gibson. Looking forward to this, David. This is, how do you navigate the refusing to shave?
That's a great question, as you can see for me. Thank you for that one. The issue about refusing to shave could be born of a number of different things. It could be a religious thing, it could be a personal choice, as is the case in my case. However, there are plenty of solutions which are Fed Air solutions that can be used from a number of different manufacturers that will allow you to provide the right kind of respiratory protection for an individual who chooses, or for whatever reason, not to shave. And by all means, seek advice from your health and safety professional in your organisation in the first instance, and then by all means look to people like ourselves to offer you the advice as to what could be a potential solution to make that situation.
Thank you, David. Again, hopefully that's answered that very difficult question for you personally, David. We have some more that have come in, again, anonymous. So I'm going to pitch this to the relevant person on the panel, which I think we'll just play left and right on this one, which will be Andy again. What is the best approach to effective dust control?
Thank you, Simon. That's an excellent question there. And there's many different approaches, I guess, and you'll have to assess what the actual activity is, which is where RVT can come in and provide that support and that advice. Using our 3 C's methodology, which the audience will remember in the video earlier, my colleague Ted Taylor went through those. It's very easy to remember. 3 C's are capture, contain, and control. And in very simple terms, the 3 C's are, so the capture is capturing the dust at source, so before it can spread to the wider environment and then obviously affect others that are working around. The contain element is to reduce the size of your work area, minimize it, bring it under more of a manageable size. And then the control is to put the actual area you're working in under a negative pressure. So RVTs our expertise is to work with that support and provide advice and help you implement those that methodology. I hope that that helps with that question, Simon.
Yeah, very good, very comprehensive. Thank you very much, Andy. Hopefully a nice, easier one for you this time, David. When should the employer provide RPE? Again, that's an anonymous question on that one.
At the end of the day, every employer has a legal responsibility to provide the right sort of protective equipment, and that is then mirrored by the responsibility of the employee, the individual, also then to use the equipment that's being provided to them. So hopefully that will answer that question.
Indeed it did. Thank you very much. A nice long question here from Adrian Cook. Quite aptly, I think this one goes back to you, Andy. So I'll just read this as it's came through live. Can your equipment be adapted to suit when drilling or grinding at height? A lot of trades are drilling soffits, concrete on columns and beams, working of towers, podiums, etc. From the products in the slides and presentations, they all appear to be floor mounted.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Adrian, for that question. Very good question. And yes, our equipment can be modified to suit. What we would look at doing is where you've got the capture hood, we would mount a magnetic foot, which can be clamped to the cage of the podium or the mute or whatever's being used. Then that will get that capture hood as close as possible to the actual source of the dust. With the maybe the Raptor unit, the small Raptor unit, which is portable, that can be taken up with you in the cage on the mute. But in answer to that, yes, we can modify and support on that one. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you very much. I suppose this is a joint one, really. It's again from an anonymous attendee. Is site support and education something that OnSite and RVT would offer on respiratory risk protection? So that is a question. That is a question to both of you. So if you want to go first, David.
Thank you. I think as Andy alluded to in his video and his presentation, 100% yes. More than happy to provide, whether it's toolbox talks or if it's a specific challenging question, we'll drag experts in from the various manufacturers so we can make sure that we give you the right recommendations to provide you with the right solutions, and also to help with that education piece too. Always happy to do that.
Fantastic. Andy?
Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. Absolutely. And as David said, one of RVT's passions is to provide that education, that support on site. We will come down and meet the team on site, discuss through the challenge, and then put forward a solution to that. So yes, support is there. We understand that not every challenge has a straightforward answer. So we look to support through the whole procedure. And in terms of education, absolutely, you've got the CPD approved presentations, or we could do a presentation that's more tailored to your individual site, looking at the challenges, and then work around those and give you the support that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I would personally encourage everyone who's on the call to try and take both David, OnSite support, Andy and RVT Group up on their offer, because they do provide some fantastic interactive learning sessions. So that's great for when you've got busy projects and you want to have that up close and personal interaction. So that's fantastic. Whilst we were doing the sort of duo question set, there's one more here which has been again anonymous attendee. So that one's just come in now. So this one is to both presenters. David, if you could answer it first, and then it will go over to Andy. When you wear FFP3 dust masks, which is claimed an optimum protection, which method do we adopt? PPE or dust extraction?
As has been discussed, you really need to look at that hierarchy. So PPE is always then the last line of defence. And so therefore, you really need to make sure it is the last line of defence. And you need to take every other measure prior to that before resorting to PPE in order to protect you.
Thank you, David. Over to Andy.
Thank you very much. A very good question there. Quite rightly, as David points out, on the PPE being a last line of defence, which can't be ignored. But what I would say there is the extraction would be an additional measure. And again, look at it in its own rights. Often we find where in someone's RAMs, they need PPE, but extraction's not mentioned. And that could then actually affect what they're doing themselves, that the work is actually affecting others in the work area. So adding the extraction element just to control their immediate environment, capture any dust that's escaping or is in the air, even if it's fume from welding perhaps. I would really say, I would say both, but again, it's all the question of the risk management and the.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Andy. Thank you very much. I do apologise to the anonymous attendee who posted a question at 9:39. It seems to have come through slightly distorted on the screen for me with the words. I'm going to try and interpret the question, what I think is being asked, and I'll ask this one to David. If works are creating dust in a working area, should everyone have a mask or should the area be closed off?
That's a really tough question to answer without actually having sight of the particular circumstances.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is imperative that if you think there's a risk, that you should refer to the risk and method statements that have been detailed prior to commencing any work, because that is really your primary guidance in terms of whether or not the area should be closed off and whether or not anybody that's within that area or adjacent to that area needs any kind of protection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on it in your slides and presentation, David. Fundamentally, under the management regs, we have to risk assess, so that should be part of that risk assessment process. Absolutely. I think this one is more relevant, obviously, to Andy. What is the best method to control dust during sanding, rubbing down, for decorating activities? And again, that's an anonymous attendee, but hopefully the person is still with us live.
Thank you, Simon. Again, another very good question there. What we would look to do is potentially using the Raptor unit, which is more of a portable unit, is to capture that dust at source. So if you're sanding, you'd very likely have on-tool extraction. But again, there is still dust in the air from that activity. That on-tool extraction doesn't capture everything. So we would look to use additional extraction in the background. There could also be an option, if possible, putting that room that you're working in under a slight negative pressure. That just means you're extracting air out of that room faster than it can be replaced. And that actually is containing that dust within that room. It doesn't migrate to the rest of the property or wherever you're working.
Thank you very much, Andy, on that one. I'm just going to put this one over to David. I think it's quite in line with the previous one on when should the employer provide RPE. This one is, are temporary workers exempt from the provision of PPE and RPE?
Very quick and simple answer is no. Everybody should be protected regardless of how they're employed, and therefore it is imperative that everybody is protected regardless of who they are and what role they're doing on the project.
Thank you very much for that. We have they're all anonymous, by the way, so hopefully everyone is sort of still with us. This one I think is to both of you, from what I can sort of glean from this one. How do I know if the filters are the correct ones and are working correctly and effectively? So I think that goes both for PPE in RPE and also for extraction units, which Andy showcased in the previous slides. So if I could go to Andy first on that one.
Thank you, Simon. With the filters, we obviously would definitely always recommend that they're checked regularly and replaced if needed while the equipment is in use. Now, what I would suggest is you check with the provider of the equipment, particularly if you're hiring it, that they fitted new filters at before they dispatched it, and also make sure that they actually checked it. So something that RVT, we as a policy, we always fit brand new filters. And then I think in the video earlier, you recall Ted mentioned that we record the serial numbers of the filters, and that's all logged, and then we put the equipment through a thorough examination. In terms of which filters are best, again, that is a conversation we would have before we even provided anything. So we would understand what dust it is, who needs to be protected, so we can actually recommend and fit the correct filters. But we are here to help you, support and provide that advice. Hope that helps.
Fantastic. I think this one, again, anonymous, just came in, quite a poignant one in relation to people's behaviours. But this one is, I believe most operative managers are aware of the dangers of construction dust, but how do we improve upon the behavioural aspects operatives go from site to site and bring with them various poor behaviours from not so diligent projects? So quite a provocative question there. I suppose I'll put my slant on that from a personal perspective. I think everyone should be aware of their own personal responsibilities, not only for their own health and safety and others, but under the Health and Safety at Work Act. But I think the best we can do when we have our own projects to manage and people to look after and to safeguard is ensure we have effective communication, information and awareness. Sessions such as this or sessions such as RVT and OnSite can provide live onto those projects. It's about informing and educating. Behaviours or behavioural aspects is a very deep area to touch upon, but I think through effective monitoring controls within the workplace, hopefully we can pick up these behaviours at source and then educate and hopefully improve those. That would be my take on that. I don't know whether Andy or David would have anything to add on that.
I think there's, if I may interject, is behavioural change is a challenge, but we have the responsibility not only to ourselves but also to the people around us. So if you do see something, you should rather than be confrontational about it, because obviously it doesn't help anybody, just share what you believe to be best practice, and if in any doubt, refer to the health and safety leadership that's on that particular project.
Thank you. There is one, unfortunately, David, I think this just sort of flips back to you. Hopefully covered off in your slides, but obviously the question's been asked anonymously nonetheless, so deserves an answer nonetheless. Why is respiratory protection so important and necessary?
Respiratory protection, as we've seen really from Doug's video, I mean, I think that really tells the story. The challenge is that before you know it, it could already be too late, and therefore you need to be take the best steps possible in line with the advice that you're given, and the protective equipment you've been given, and whether that's environmental protection or your personal protection, because, as I say, you can't be too careful.
Thank you on that one. Absolutely. We have one more anonymous question. Is let's, I suppose, even though it looks more towards the extraction side of it, I think really, I think that's the more relevant one for Andy. But do you provide upfront planning and support in relations to the elimination of risk in the workplace?
Thanks, Simon. Yes, in answer to that, absolutely. We provide a lot of advice up front if it's a tender or you're going through the design stage, and there's obviously aware of risks involved. The process is going to cause the hazards. So we would engage, we put forward some suggested methodology, some plans, suggested equipment, and hopefully then that can be built into maybe the tender package, the wording, and ultimately we would like to think that would be help you be successful in winning that project, because you've shown some thought, you've got some good methodology in there and solutions, and some pre-thoughts gone in there in providing the protection. So yes, absolutely, the support all the way.
Thank you very much. We've got a very poignant one from Dean Murphy, which is just coming as well. So I think this really for suppliers to the industry, it'd be sort of good to get your uptake and insights into maybe providing an answer to this. If I start with David, do you feel the industry training does enough for education on health, and in particular respiratory protection, both at management and trade levels, for examples, CITB, CSCS?
I think the simple answer is this is one area of protection where you cannot overprotect, and therefore I don't think you can ever do enough in order to educate on health, which is why initiatives like today are fantastic. The focus the British Lung Foundation has put on respiratory protection, and particularly the leadership from the HSE is critical to make sure that awareness is heightened, but then also there is a lot of information that's available through those bodies and also through responsible manufacturers in order to provide the education. But yes, more can be done at every level.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Andy, would you add anything onto that?
Thanks, Simon. I can't really add too much. I fully agree with what's been said, that you can't do too much. What we're looking to do today is protect the health down the road when no, the effects of poor health don't necessarily come out immediately. From these hazards, they're later. So we want to put everything we can, all the energies we can now in protecting that health to enjoy your life later.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with the Doug video, there is that element still within the industry of invincibility, isn't there? So, you know, when we do see these activities, you know, stop, as Doug said, stop. I suppose we've got time for one more light one before the session ends, and this is a nice light one in relation to finishing the event off with. Again, it's a joint question. I'll sort of revert it to David first. What are the best contact details for RVT and OnSite if I would like to get in touch for support?
We're easy to find, OnSite support.co.uk, and that means that you can get in contact with us, that we have news information, and as RVT do also have a lot of other resources at our disposal. So use OnSite support.co.uk as your initial point of contact.
And that was an anonymous question, but I suppose I'll expand on that just in case there's others that are thinking they'd like to take you up on that offer. Are there any geographical restrictions in OnSite support, David?
No, none whatsoever.
Fantastic. Andy, for RVT?
Thank you, Simon. So again, very easy to find. A simple Google of RVT group will bring us up. And again, we cover nationwide, north, south, east, west. And I'm not sure whether we'll be sending some details out afterwards, but you know, we can do to anybody that needs it some details on how to contact us. But yeah, very easy to find.
I think both by the power of Google, you can be found quite easy, can't you? So that's fantastic. Okay, we're sort of right towards the end of the session now. So what I would like to personally say, and from on behalf of all the other guest speakers, is thank you to everyone who has attended this session. We really do hope that you have found the information and the interaction interesting. We will certainly follow up with any questions that we will not be able to answer during the event, and that will hopefully come out with a sort of feedback Q&A. So for myself personally, I'd like to thank everyone for taking their time out, especially during busy times and train strikes, to attend the session and be part of something where we're trying to aspire the awareness and the education within the industry on a very relevant subject matter. Thank you very much.